10 years old when I first started dove hunting.
I've been hunting since I was about, I'd say 10.
Boy, ever since I possibly could.
I've been hunting since I've been 16.
Chronic wasting disease is basically a deadly brain disease that affects members of the deer family. So we're talking deer, elk, caribou, reindeer, moose. Any member of the deer family can be infected with chronic wasting disease. Chronic wasting disease is believed to be caused by a misfolded or defective protein that is called a prion. Essentially, whenever they misfold. We don't know why they misfold yet, but we do know that once they do misfold and they have this misfolded shape, that they cause disease. First detected in Pennsylvania in 2012 in a captive deer facility in Adams County, Pennsylvania. Shortly after that, we found 3 wild positives in Bedford and Blair County, and as a result, the Pennsylvania Game Commission created what is known as disease management areas. And within these areas, specific regulations apply to prevent the spread of CWD. We currently have 3 disease management areas, and they continue to spread every year.
I know it affects the deer population. It was brought in from deer farms, and that they don't know a whole lot about it, how it affects humans, and that the CWD areas in Pennsylvania, the deer cannot go out of those areas, and you must dispose of all parts in those areas.
I understand that they want to be safe because if this thing does get out into the natural population, it could really wreak havoc on our sport and our interest and our ecology here.
Trying to stop chronic wasting disease is extremely hard, because there's currently no cure or vaccine for the disease, and it doesn't look like there's going to be one in the near future.
Over the last year, hunters in Pennsylvania have become more educated on the effects of CWD.
I think the first thing we ought to look at is where deer farms are and how they're regulated and how they're being handled, because in the wild it's just hard to regulate.
Well, I think you need to put some legislation laws on the farms that are raising the deer. I've heard a lot of them reading about the double fence is a pretty simple thing to do, and it would stop the spread from the farms to the wild.
And the majority of our samples that we use from testing do come from hunter harvested deer.
I think a lot of it stems from where you have unnatural deer activity. And where that occurs is where deer farms, where they try to pack in, as many deer as they can into a small area. And we know that this just isn't beneficial for the deer population.
Potentially, we've been trying to give out increased doe tags. They're what we call DMAP permits. Basically, a DMAP permit allows a hunter to harvest 1 additional antlerless deer. And they can only be used in what we call DMAP units in the state.
My opinion, I think they have too many doe tags that they're really going to do a hurting on the population this season.
Maybe some people enjoy it because you can get more doe tags and more deer.
Pennsylvania right now, hunters harvest about 7 to 8 deer per square mile. And when chronic wasting disease shows up in a new area, we need a lot of samples to determine where it's at and the location of it. Ideally, we would like to have an additional maybe 4 to 5 deer per square mile. It is always fatal. We have not found a case where an animal has survived chronic wasting disease yet.
As hunters agree on where CWD has come from, there are still disagreements on how CWD should be handled and what should be done.
I like the idea where they are expanding their survey range to include more square mileage to make sure that they're not being found and that people are going to have their brains and spines of the deer they get tested to make sure that it's not in the wild.
I don't know if I agree with how the Game Commission is kind of going after the entire deer herd in this area, but that's, I guess, their way of handling it.
Although we know where CW has evolved from, there are still disagreements on what should be done and how it should be handled in the upcoming years.